Gracias a todos por asistir. Bienvenido, Mr. Baron, y gracias por sumarte a este foro y hacer este viaje a Madrid en un momento en el que seguro que tienes una agenda apretadísima y más a poquísimos días de la inauguración de vuestra nueva presidencia en Estados Unidos. Gracias por brindarnos esta excelente oportunidad para que los periodistas aportemos debate y aportemos reflexiones a los retos de nuestra profesión. Extender también el agradecimiento rápidamente a la Fundación del Pino por acogernos y a Conversacionescon, a su editora Ana Sánchez de la Nieta, por esta iniciativa y por permitirnos pasar la tarde con una de las figuras más relevantes del periodismo en Estados Unidos, del periodismo a nivel mundial, el editor del Washington Post, que además, como digo, viene a España en uno de los momentos más apasionantes y también más inquietantes del periodismo y de la política en Estados Unidos. Baron tiene una larga experiencia en la dirección de periódicos, a la que lleva dedicado ya unos 16 años. Hemos repasado algunas de las cabeceras brillantes y yo, como periodista, quiero poner varios ejemplos de las noticias, ¿no?, de las exclusivas que ha dado. Su historial profesional recoge aquel Pulitzer por la cobertura de la polémica custodia del niño cubano Elian González, o de ese empeño de Baron por hacer el recuento de votos de George Bush como presidente y asegurarse de que el recuento en Florida estaba bien, incluso cuando iba a ser presidente, ¿no? En el Boston Globe destapó el escándalo muy conocido de los abusos sexuales en la iglesia en la ciudad de Boston, que tuvo muchas presiones y merecidos reconocimientos. Y en el Washington Post no dudó tampoco en destapar otro de los asuntos más espinosos, como el espionaje de la NSA, de la Agencia de Seguridad Nacional. Y recientemente hemos visto las grabaciones que recogían comentarios ofensivos de Donald Trump. Baron ha demostrado una indudable capacidad de liderazgo a pesar de las indisimuladas presiones y ha sufrido también, y a pesar de los recortes que han golpeado las empresas y las redacciones, cuando en el Boston Globe tuvo que recortar el 40% de la plantilla, y en el Washington Post, cuando llegó allá hace poquito, en enero de 2013, aunque parece más, de 3 años, cuando llegó, pues había unas pérdidas de 16% de difusión y unos 40 millones de euros en pérdidas. 9 meses después, Jeff Bezos, el fundador de Amazon, anuncia que compra el periódico y pues el Washington Post se convierte en una referencia global y juntos han conseguido revertir esas cifras. Hay en este oficio una cualidad que tiene, que es lo que llamamos el talento, el instinto, ¿no?, para los grandes temas, que tiene una mezcla, una fórmula pues que no es científica, ¿no?, que tiene que ver con el talento personal de uno y con la dedicación. Pero si además de esto le sumamos la capacidad para defender el periodismo y defender a los periodistas, eso pasa por tener una fortaleza humana y personal, y eso implica también decisiones diarias y valientes, y esta conjunción de ambas cosas es lo que hace precisamente grande a Baron. Baron tiene interiorizada una de las grandes verdades de esta profesión, y es que el mejor periodismo es aquel que sirve para mejorar el mundo. Y tiene una definición que habéis subrayado al principio, que a mí me gusta especialmente, que es la de que el periodismo es pedirle cuentas al poder, a todo tipo de poder, al político, al económico, al empresarial. Fiscalizar al poder es a lo que nos dedicamos. Y para esto, para fiscalizar al poder, nos hacen falta empresas rentables. El Washington Post es un clarísimo ejemplo, como hemos visto, de cómo un legacy media, como un medio convencional hace una transición digital, hay que decir, brillante, una transición digital que apuesta por la tecnología punta, que apuesta por las alianzas internas y externas, y que consigue adelantar incluso al New York Times en el número de lectores mensuales. Para poner un ejemplo rápido, sirve el primer día de la era Trump. Si uno abría el Washington Post, se encontraba con esa cobertura de la marcha multitudinaria de las mujeres, la podía ver por streaming, por vídeo, por testimonios en las redes sociales, había interactivos de cuáles eran las preocupaciones de los jóvenes, había fact-checking minuciosos y palabra por palabra que desmantelaban la versión oficial de la Casa Blanca cuando nos acusaban a los periodistas de mentir con las cifras de la toma de posesión. Textos, vídeos, imágenes, análisis de referencia que recogían la primera declaración de Trump, y era que el presidente de Estados Unidos declaraba la guerra a los medios en la sede de la CIA. Y esto es lo que hay. Estos son los nuevos tiempos, ¿no? La nueva normalidad. Un tiempo donde los gobernantes nos van a vender una realidad alternativa, es decir, falsa, y nos acusarán de inventarnos la verdad. Se avecinan pues tiempos que pueden resultar, no sé si oscuros, pero que los van a intentar llenar de lo que es la posverdad, y Marty Baron tiene en este contexto, cobran especialmente sentido sus reflexiones. Marty Baron también dice a los periodistas que tenemos que ser ágiles, que tenemos que ser tecnológicos y que tienen que estar preparados para la era Facebook y Snapchat, pero también preparados para la era Trump, para la era de los extremismos, para la era de los fanatismos y de la mentira. Así que sobre cómo se aborda la transformación digital, cómo la están abordando desde el Washington Post, cuál es el estado actual en el que estamos los medios, cómo controlar a un poder que se presume cada vez más agresivo, son de algunas de las reflexiones de las que Baron tiene muchas claves y va a compartir con nosotros esta tarde. Recordaros que la conferencia va a ser en inglés, así que podéis escuchar la traducción simultánea con los auriculares, y os van a pasar unas tarjetitas para que vayáis apuntando vuestras preguntas, vuestros temas, vuestros debates que queráis que al final pues recojamos. Luego os la recogerán durante la charla. Nada más, muchas gracias, Marty. Recordarte que este es un país no analógico, pero que el presidente no te contestará por Twitter al final de la charla, así que puedes estar tranquilo y puedes decir lo que quieras.
Vamos a ver. Bueno,
adelante, gracias.
Vale, donde quieras.
Aquí.
¿Te gusta más?
¿Allí?
Bueno, gracias Pilar, María, Mónica, la Fundación, la Universidad y todos ustedes por invitarme a esta conferencia y a esta ciudad que me encanta. Voy a decir algunas palabras en español y cambiar de idioma para el discurso formal. Y yo creo que no hay nada más que decir sobre mi carrera ni mi vida, ¿no? Afortunadamente he tenido la oportunidad de visitar Madrid y varias veces y de recorrer una gran parte de este lindo país, viajando desde Cádiz hasta Valencia, desde Granada hasta Santiago de Compostela. Una vez me quedé en Sevilla para estudiar con intensidad el castellano. Y los madrileños me dijeron que debido al acento sevillano fue como si estuviera estudiando inglés en Irlanda. En esta ocasión, la Universidad de Navarra me ha dado la oportunidad de abordar el tema del futuro del periodismo, una profesión al cual me he dedicado 40 años, las últimas 17 como director de periódicos en las ciudades de Miami, Boston y Washington. Me siento muy agradecido a la universidad por la invitación y por haberme permitido huir por un rato el ambiente venenoso en mi propio país. Parece que ese ambiente no se va a desvanecer en cualquier momento pronto. Las elecciones estadounidenses fueron un terremoto y los periodistas en el Washington Post y en otros medios se preparan para cubrir un cambio sísmico en la política de nuestro país y un presidente que hizo de la animosidad hacia la prensa un punto central de su campaña. Por toda mi carrera como director de periódicos, me he enfrentado a muchos retos y a lo largo de los años los retos han seguido creciendo. Y no importa todo lo que hayamos hecho hasta este momento, seguimos tratando de superar las dificultades que han socavado la fundación de nuestra industria. Es sumamente importante que las superemos si queremos asegurar el futuro no solamente de nuestra profesión, sino también de la libertad de expresión. Este es el tema de mi charla. Hubiera preferido escribir este discurso en castellano, sin embargo, para mí hubiera sido demasiado difícil traducirlo. Pues les agradezco permiso de cambiar de idioma. Bueno, para empezar. As I noted, in the United States, and as you know, in the United States, a new president has just taken office. I'm proud that in the United States, we have a democracy that allows citizens to decide who should be their leader. I would not have it any other way, and I can think of no better system. The voters weighed all the information they had. They made their decision. The democratic process deserves our respect. And my hope is that we will develop a normal, entirely professional relationship with the president and his administration now that a vitriolic campaign is over. Our goal as a news organization is to be honest, honorable, accurate, fair, forthright, and always independent in our coverage. And our goal is to fulfill the first principle that was established for the Washington Post more than 8 decades ago, to tell the truth as nearly as the truth may be ascertained. Still, those of us who work as journalists in the United States know that our new president presents a challenge to our profession, one more big challenge in a field that is already full of them. We see our job as virtuous. He describes our profession as vile. The divide between us seems breathtakingly wide. The press in the United States was granted its constitutional rights with a bold idea. Government should be held accountable to the people it serves, and the press serves an essential role in achieving that purpose. Thomas Jefferson, a principal author of the U.S. Declaration of Independence and the third president of the United States, famously said in the year 1787, "Were it left to me to decide whether we should have a government without newspapers or newspapers without a government, I should not hesitate a moment to prefer the latter." It is a safe bet that our new president would not say something like that. During his campaign, he went beyond criticizing us. He sought to delegitimize us, even to dehumanize us. He described the press as disgusting, scum, the lowest form of humanity, even the lowest form of life. Toward the end of the campaign, he called the media the enemies. And after his election, at his New Year's party, he called us garbage. In his contentious first post-election press conference, he called CNN fake news. In his visit to the CIA last week, on his first full day as president, he launched a full-scale attack on the press, once again describing us as dishonest. Sadly, we have seen crackdowns on free expression and the press around the world in recent years, in China, in Russia, in Hungary, in Venezuela, in Turkey, in Poland, and elsewhere. And so we in the United States need to be vigilant, lest we begin to lose the rights we have been fortunate to inherit, and that have inspired citizens of other nations. A hostile administration promises to be a huge challenge for the media in the United States, but it is only one of many challenges that we as journalists face today. We in the media must meet every one of these challenges if we are to assure our survival, and if we are to assure a secure future for free expression. There is no strong democracy without a strong and independent press. Our struggles, in my view, are ones that should concern all citizens of democratic countries, all people who view the free exchange of ideas and information and the genuine pursuit of truth as fundamental to human dignity and a well-functioning civil society. So I'd like to use these remarks today to talk about those challenges, It's important to reflect on how much things have changed in our industry and our profession in less than 2 decades, and how fast. High-speed broadband connections were in their infancy in the years 2000 and 2001. Broadband penetration was limited. Without it, there was no online video, no audio, no wireless communications, no mobile communications, very little sharing of photos. So much that we take for granted today did not exist less than 2 decades ago. Google had not yet issued shares to the public. It did not go public until 2004. Social media did not exist in any meaningful way. Facebook was not founded until 2004. Twitter, not until 2006. YouTube wasn't founded until 2005. There was no expectation at the beginning of this century that we could get any information we wanted at any time and anywhere on a device that fits into a pocket. The iPhone was not introduced until only a decade ago. In the last 12 to 15 years, we have witnessed virtually every major technological advance that has disrupted, if not devastated, traditional media. And I haven't even mentioned more recent developments like Instagram or Snapchat or other message apps or bots or artificial intelligence or 360-degree video and virtual reality. Change will only come faster in the years ahead. After all that has transpired, maybe our profession should celebrate its survival. But in many instances, we have survived only just barely. There is certainly no room for satisfaction or complacency. And all of this leads to one conclusion. This is a digital society, and we must adapt. And not just adapt, really, but embrace the change. It is not just a digital society, by the way. It is a mobile society. 80% of adults on Earth are expected to have a smartphone by the year 2020, 3 years from today. The internet, almost overnight, has given birth to a new medium, and that is leading to a new form of journalism. Just as radio led to its form of journalism, just as television led to its own form of journalism. And when the internet came along, our industry reacted as if nothing fundamental had changed. We saw the internet only as a new way to distribute our work. That was not embracing change. And to be honest, we did not even understand the change. Today, we should recognize, once and for all, what we're dealing with. It deserves repeating. We're dealing with an entirely new medium. Novel, innovative forms of storytelling are being introduced. Stories that are more conversational, more accessible, as if you were talking to a friend or to a relative. With this new medium, the voice and personality of the writer is often more evident. It feels more authentic. It is more authentic, and readers want that. Stories can now reflect the full power of the tools available to us. Video, 360-degree video, audio, social media, interactive graphics, animations, original documents, annotations of documents, you name it. The direction of our profession should now be obvious, yet many journalists still resist what the future demands. They feel the pull of the past. They think only of what they are losing. They are in mourning. And the truth is, it is futile and worse, counterproductive to resist the inevitable changes in our profession. So what lies ahead? First, mobile technology will dominate. That is only natural with the proliferation of smartphones. People use every spare moment to look at their phones. Some of you are probably doing that right now. Maybe most of you. Many venture capital companies today will not fund a digital product unless it is mobile at its core. Media outlets must concentrate above all on the mobile experience. Second, social media will shape how people get their news and what news they get. People do not feel a duty to seek out news and information, nor do they see it as necessary. They expect news to find them through social networks. These networks are where people are talking to each other, so we in media must have an intimate understanding of them. They will be essential to getting our stories disseminated to millions of people. They also are vital to an activity that we in media need to get better at: listening. If we wish to know what most concerns people, we must listen better and listen more often. And if you want to listen, go to where people are talking. Third, it is impossible to say today what the dominant news brands will be in the future. With the right idea and smart execution, new companies can establish themselves quickly in our field, and they have done exactly that. BuzzFeed was founded only in 2006, Huffington Post in 2005. They are now major players in the media universe. And venture capital is funding other competitors too, waging that newcomers can depose the media establishment. And some of the old brands are posing competitive challenges of their own. I proudly put the Washington Post of today in that category. More than a year ago, we surpassed the New York Times in US monthly unique visitors to all digital platforms. We got there with monthly growth rates as high as 70% year over year. And we now run neck and neck with the New York Times, with up to 107 million unique visitors per month in the United States alone. Number 4, advanced technology will be key to our success. Without it, success will not be possible. We have to be leaders. If we are technological laggards, we will be losers. Media outlets will need to have top-notch technology experts on staff. We will have to create engaging new products for readers and advertisers and do it quickly. We will have to respond almost instantly to developments like virtual reality, 360-degree video, and new products like Amazon Echo, which is a hands-free speaker you control with your voice to play music or get information about news, sports scores, weather, and more. Routinely, we will have to partner with technology firms, Facebook, Apple, Twitter, Google, Snapchat, and others, including many yet to be born. We will also have to form technology partnerships within our own companies. At the Washington Post, we have fostered a tight working relationship between the newsroom and the engineering department. Dozens of engineers sit in our newsroom, working closely with our journalists. All of us in this field are working harder. Now we have to work smarter, and technology is key. What I have described is the path we have taken at the Washington Post since we were acquired by Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, in October of 2013. Jeff Bezos immediately reoriented the strategy for the Post. We would no longer be a news organization focused on mostly our region. Jeff felt we should be national and international, and we needed to get big fast. The internet has deprived our industry of many things. Among them, of course, the security of an industry that was expensive to enter because it required paper, ink, printing presses, and trucks. But the internet, Jeff pointed out, also has given us some gifts. And most important, we can achieve wide distribution of our work at virtually no cost. So if the internet had ways of hurting us, why wouldn't we take advantage of the ways the internet could help us? We at the Post have taken many steps toward transforming our newsroom. We created an overnight staff that scans the web for interesting stories, using the reporting of others and adding its own, and then writing in a distinct, more informal style that works especially well on the web. This staff works from 10 o'clock at night until 6 o'clock in the morning. So we have many news stories for readers when they wake up. This team, by the way, was responsible for our second most popular story last year. It involved a woman in Australia who showed up at her own funeral to surprise her husband, who had paid to have her killed. You'll have to look it up. It's a complicated but amazing tale. We established a general assignment news team that works during daytime hours, starting very early. Of course, it covers breaking news in any subject area when necessary. But for the most part, it searches for stories that are beginning to generate conversation in social media or that have gone unnoticed. This team produced our third most popular story last year. Here's the story. Witnesses had seen a Stanford University swimmer sexually assaulting an unconscious woman behind a garbage dumpster. Now the victim was able to confront him in court. She faced the swimmer to say this: "You took away my worth, my privacy, my energy, my time, my intimacy, my confidence, my own voice, until today." We created many news-oriented blogs covering specialized areas like the environment, science, military affairs, the culture of the internet, parenting, spiritual life, pop culture, the animal world, and many other subjects. On the parenting blog, the most popular story last year was how to raise kinder, less entitled kids according to science. And on the blog about the culture of the internet, one of the most popular was about a 38-year-old who makes his living writing fake news stories so that they go viral on Facebook. He declared, "I think Donald Trump is in the White House because of me." We added resources for pre-existing blogs that already had been highly successful, including ones that focused on politics, economics, public policy, and world affairs. The newspaper's opinion section now reflects the ways of the internet. New opinion writers do not wait until their column for the newspaper is scheduled for publication. They offer their viewpoints immediately when public interest is at its peak. We developed what we felt was the ideal schedule for publishing stories during the internet era. We required every department to publish earlier in the day when readership is at its highest. This marked a sharp shift away from a newspaper schedule where most stories are edited during evening hours for publication the next morning. We have added to our staff that specializes in how to disseminate our work through social media and how to use social media in our own reporting. We are concentrating not just on Facebook and Twitter, but on other less obvious social networks. We have significantly improved our email newsletters, how they are curated, how they are designed, when they are sent. They can be a major source of traffic, and they allow us to reach readers directly rather than going through Facebook, Twitter, and Google. We have focused on the speed of news alerts sent via email, closely measuring them against our competitors. Our goal is to be first on every news alert. Our engineering department has created a tool that allows us to try multiple headlines, photos, and story summaries all at the same time, and whichever is performing best is promptly delivered to all readers automatically. Our engineering department also has developed a tool that uses big data to customize our recommendations for which additional stories might interest readers. This tool delivers far better results than human judgment. Working with the engineering department, we have also built something called the Washington Post Talent Network. As you know, there are many journalists who are unemployed, underemployed, prematurely retired, and still eager to work. So we created an online freelance network that gives us access to reporters, photographers, and videographers around the United States and the world. We now have 2,900 journalists worldwide in the talent network. It has helped us cover mass shootings in the United States, as we did last June at the Florida nightclub where 49 people were killed. It has helped us cover terrorist attacks overseas, as we did in Nice last July when 84 people were killed. Freelancers arrived on location quickly in both instances. And most interestingly, we now have independent journalists around the United States and the world looking for the best stories and proposing to do them for us. In the middle of a devastating drought in Southern California, one freelancer wrote about how rich people were ignoring government restrictions on water use. They were using as much water as they wished. And one wealthy property owner was quoted as saying, "People should not be forced to live on property with brown lawns, golf on brown courses, or apologize for wanting their gardens to be beautiful. No, we're not all equal when it comes to water." You can imagine the outrage from readers. In short, we are experimenting feverishly to drive traffic, get readers to spend more time with our stories, and build more loyalty to the Post. It has been a successful strategy. As I said earlier, online traffic has soared as high as 107 million unique visitors per month in the United States. Subscriptions have surged. Readers' time spent with our stories has moved up. And 2016 was a profitable year, the first in a very long time. That performance has set the stage for additional investments in our newsroom in 2017. At a time of cutbacks at so many media organizations, we will be adding this year about 6 journalists. Our video team will expand dramatically. We will create a rapid response investigative team. We will add to our capacity for instantly covering breaking news at any time of the day or night, 7 days a week. I'm often asked whether I can feel optimistic about our profession. I say yes, and here's why. New forms of storytelling are proving effective at connecting with readers. The use of video, social media, interactive graphics, original documents, all of that can make storytelling more vivid and even more credible because it means we can show, not just tell. The pressures on our industry are forcing us to pay close attention to our customers, and that is a good thing. The work we do must resonate with a public that is routinely impatient, easily distracted, and quickly bored. And that doesn't have to mean only short stories. It does not have to mean clickbait. Long stories can attract readers and hold them, but they need to be written compellingly and presented in formats that take into account the way that people consume information today. Everything we do must persuade people that it is worth their time and their attention. I am also encouraged by what I see in the new generation of journalists entering the field. They come with the skills required. They can think well, write well, they're bright, they're energetic, they're enthusiastic, they love what journalism can do, they understand its vital role in society, and they appreciate that there are new, highly effective ways to tell stories that utilize all the new powerful tools available to us. These young journalists are true digital natives. It shows, and they are determined to make journalism work for people of their generation. For that, I could not be more grateful. I am also encouraged by the experimentation I see in our industry. Now, no one, as far as I know, can claim to have found a miracle cure for all that afflicts us. But all the experimentation is likely to deliver some strong clues about the path forward. For all that we must do to remake ourselves, it's important to remember what remains the same. Without good ideas for stories, without reporting those stories well, writing them well, executing at the highest level in every way, we will not succeed. All the technology tools in the world cannot substitute for strong journalism. Journalism that informs our community and our countries, that forms the basis for civil society and democratic governance. There's a quote from our owner, Jeff Bezos, on one of the glass partitions in our new offices in Washington, D.C. It makes clear that we do ourselves no favors if we only think about business and forget about mission. Jeff's quote goes like this: "I strongly believe that missionaries make better products. They care more. For a missionary, it's not just about the business. There has to be a business, and the business has to make sense. But that's not why you do it. You do it because you have something meaningful that motivates you." All true journalists have something meaningful that motivates them. It is our compass. At the center of our mission is journalism that holds powerful institutions and individuals accountable. We have an obligation to speak truth to power, and the powerful in our world should never be allowed to suppress it. Truth today is under siege from another source. Even basic facts are questioned, disputed, and dismissed. The internet is at the heart of this troubling turn of events. The internet can be a source for good, allowing freedom of expression. It also allows that expression to veer into a dark world of falsehoods and conspiracies. And it allows those falsehoods and conspiracy theories to be disseminated instantly to millions of individuals where many are inclined to believe them. We live in an era when information consumers have almost unlimited choice, and choice is good. But in choosing, many people have been attracted to ideologically motivated media outlets that only reinforce their pre-existing point of view and never challenge it. Most concerning is this: many of these outlets deliver to their readers, listeners, and viewers purported facts that are, in actuality, falsehoods. Ideologically driven internet outlets have suggested that someone other than Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda were responsible for the attacks of 9/11, perhaps the US government, or Jews or Israelis. They still maintain that the president was not born in the United States, or ex-president, even though all evidence shows he was, and no evidence shows he was not. 1/5 of Americans believe he was born outside the country, even though he was born in Hawaii. And 29% believe he's Muslim, even though he is a Christian. One radio host, also the operator of a popular internet site, who also, by the way, has been praised by Donald Trump, has spread the idea that some mass shootings in the United States were hoaxes and perhaps staged by the government. He claimed that the 2012 killing of 20 children and 7 adults at an elementary school in Connecticut was a fabricated event, with the purpose being to boost public support for gun control. He called images from the scene of that mass killing synthetic, manufactured, completely fake, with actors. Now, the parents of a 6-year-old boy murdered at that school ultimately spoke out about the harassment they had received from people who believed these conspiracy theories and accused them of participating in a hoax orchestrated by the Obama administration. Here is what they wrote. "The heartache of burying a child is a sorrow we would not wish upon anyone. Yet to our horror, we have found that there are some in this society who lack empathy for the suffering of others. Among them are the conspiracy theorists that deny our tragedy was real. They seek us out and accuse us of being government agents who are faking our grief and lying about our loss." During the presidential campaign, the daughter of the school's principal, who was murdered, pleaded with Trump to denounce this radio host and internet operator. "We cannot normalize fact-denying behavior," she wrote. According to another conspiracy theory that circulated widely, Hillary Clinton and the man who led her presidential campaign were operating a child sex slave ring from a Washington, D.C. pizza restaurant. This theory held that the sex trafficking was revealed in code words that were contained in emails that had been hacked from officials of the Democratic Party. It's hard to comprehend what happened next. In early December last year, a man drove up from North Carolina to Washington, D.C. Armed with an assault-style rifle, he walked into the restaurant to, in his words, self-investigate the alleged sex ring. He fired his weapon multiple times. Fortunately, he did not shoot anyone. He told police that he brought the weapon in order to carry out a rescue. Shockingly, even after this crazy incident, nearly half of Trump voters still believe that those leaked emails of the Democratic Party contain code words for pedophilia, human trafficking, and satanic ritual abuse. Our new president himself said during his campaign that thousands of Muslims in New Jersey publicly celebrated the fall of the World Trade Center towers on September 11, 2001. No such thing happened. He also said falsely after the election that millions of people voted illegally. As you may know, Donald Trump did not win the votes of most people who cast ballots in the election. Hillary Clinton did, by almost 3 million votes. Trump won in what is known as the Electoral College, which is how we select a president. The winner of each state gets all the Electoral College votes for that state. And Trump won by a total of about 80,000 votes in 3 states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, giving him a clear majority in electoral votes. Trump argued on Twitter that he would have won the popular vote without millions of people voting illegally. And he's repeated that recently. In fact, no one has produced any evidence of significant voter fraud in the presidential election. Even so, 6 out of 10 people who voted for Trump believe that millions of illegal votes were cast. And even a quarter of Clinton voters agree. The journalist Masha Gessen made a smart assessment of all of this last month. When Trump repeatedly makes false statements of this sort, he is not only making easily disprovable factual claims, he is, she wrote, claiming control over reality itself. And the purpose is, as she concluded, to assert power over truth. This past Saturday, the president's press secretary falsely claimed that the crowd attending Trump's inauguration was the largest ever, even exceeding Barack Obama's inauguration in 2009. And he called the press shameful for reporting that it was not. Now, all the evidence shows that the press reported accurately and that the press secretary's statement was untruthful. It may be premature to judge, but it is no wonder that people immediately reacted on the internet with references to George Orwell, and in particular to this one quote from his ominous book, 1984. The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command. Unfortunately, fact-checking by mainstream media outlets has little to no effect, largely because trust in the media is so low. Trust in the media has fallen, along with confidence in many other institutions. But our ranking is among the worst. Americans' trust and confidence in the mass media to report the news fully, accurately, and fairly is at its lowest level in history in the United States. Only 32% say they have a great deal or fair amount of trust in the media, down 8 percentage points from last year alone, and down 25 percentage points from 1999. Distrust of the mass media among Republicans is the major factor driving down the numbers. The figures were already bad before the election, but after Trump's sharp attacks on the media, Republican trust in the media plunged to 14% from 32% a year ago. That is the lowest level of confidence among Republicans in 2 decades. So we are objects of suspicion, and our work is met with resistance or outright rejection. Conspiracy theories and falsehoods can easily fill the vacuum, and they have. Politicians and certain ideologically motivated websites are now using the term fake news as a weapon against real news perceived as hostile to their agenda. While US intelligence services may agree that Russia interfered in the elections by hacking the Democratic Party, the website Breitbart dismissed it all as a, quote, left-wing fake news. The leading conservative radio host in the United States has said, quote, the fake news is everyday news in mainstream media. Now, journalism, like every profession, is imperfect. Mistakes are made, even big mistakes among news organizations that seriously endeavor to get the facts are entirely different from deliberately publishing pure fiction. With so many conspiracy theories and so much false information on the internet and elsewhere, and with so much conflicting information, many people are left with no idea of what to believe. And the easiest course, then, is to believe whatever you would like. All of this is having a corrosive effect. How can we have a strong civil society when we cannot agree on basic facts, when people accept lies as truth? One of our opinion columnists, Ann Applebaum, wrote that it is now possible to live in a virtual reality where lies are acclaimed as the hidden truth. For all the challenges we face in the media today, this is the greatest and the most grave. It is greater than our financial challenge. It is greater than our technology challenge. It is why we as journalists must stay faithful to our central purpose. Someone must still tell things as they really are. And we cannot be timid about it. Amid all the talk about how we as journalists must be fair in our reporting, and yes, we must, above all, our obligation is to be fair to the public. When we have done all our research, when we have done our job thoroughly, honestly, and honorably, when we have a duty to tell the public what we have learned and to tell it to them forthrightly. No government power, no powerful institution, and no powerful individual should have the right to stop us. And we in the press should not stop ourselves because of fear or self-censorship. These are times to remind ourselves what it means to be a free people, times to think hard about what is required of us if we wish to hold on to freedoms that we value. One of the most renowned Supreme Court justices in the United States was Louis Brandeis. In a famous court ruling in 1927, he reflected on the beliefs about freedom held by those who fought for the independence of the United States. He wrote, "They believed liberty to be the secret of happiness and courage to be the secret of liberty. In too many countries, in too many ways, our liberties are being placed at risk. Among those most in jeopardy are free expression, including a free press. For those of us who work in the press, and for all who cherish the free expression that gives meaning and life to our democracies, the quality we now need most is courage." Thank you for listening.
Muchas gracias, Marty, inspiradora, alentadora y también nos pone alerta de muchas cosas y sobre todo en estas circunstancias. He recibido algunas preguntas, si queréis mientras las voy planteando podéis seguir haciéndolas, que creo que se han llegado un poco tarde las tarjetas. Así que de momento voy a empezar. Vamos a empezar a preguntarte, Martí. Yo creo que hasta las 8:30 tenemos, pero María, como estás en la mesa y estamos en tu casa, nos echas cuando quieras. Mira, el compañero Martí José Manuel González, de Servimedia, pregunta que, dados los resultados electorales, dada la victoria de Trump, si la elección del presidente es una muestra de la separación que hay entre lo que publican los medios de comunicación y lo que opina la sociedad.
Right. I'll respond in English.
Sure.
Is that okay? Since we have
You need me to make you some question in English? It's fine.
whatever you want. I can
Sure.
do it's fine. Well, I think obviously there is a divide. I think that as I said, the public doesn't trust the media. They discount a lot of what we say. That said, I don't think that our efforts were ignored. The reality is that Donald Trump, when he entered office, when he took the oath of office, he had the lowest approval rating for any new president in a very long time. A lot of people know a lot of things about his history that they would not have known without the press, and it's up to the public to make the decision. They weigh all the information they have, and they make a decision, and I respect that process. And the fact is that we did investigations on all the candidates, the Republican candidates during their primaries, the Democratic candidates during their primary, and then obviously during the general election, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And so I think that I don't think that the efforts were ignored. I think that now people know a lot about this president that they would not have otherwise known. And all of that presumably will be a factor over the course of his presidency.
Otra pregunta sobre la situación de Estados Unidos. Pregunta una Blanca Vázquez, estudiante, dice, si no es un problema que en un mundo globalizado, en un país como en Estados Unidos, haya sentimientos racistas tan fuertes como los que han aflorado, y si no persecución de las minorías, pero sí una sensación de las minorías de que ahora se sienten más amenazadas.
Well, I think that is a matter of concern. I mean, I think that all of us were surprised about the expressions of racism and prejudice that appeared during the course of the campaign. I don't think that any of us were naive to think that in our country that we didn't have some level of prejudice. I think that some of us were surprised to see as much of it as we did. There's prejudice in every country in the world. I think that we see we see that in Europe. We see that in other areas of the world as well. I don't think that's what determined the election, by the way. I think that the election was not determined by racism. I think the election was determined by other factors. There are a whole range of them, starting with perhaps how the campaign was run, how the campaigns were run. Certainly the fact that Donald Trump was able to express some of the deep concerns that people in the United States had about their economic status and their social status, that they had lost jobs, that there were fewer opportunities, that they didn't have job opportunities for their children, that they were concerned about cultural changes in the United States. All of those, I think, were significant factors. Certainly, Russian hacking had some effect. Whether it was a deciding effect or not, I guess other people can debate that. But there were a whole range of factors that I think affected the election, and I don't think that the expressions of racism were the determining factor. I do think it's a subject that we have to reflect on in the United States, and somehow we'll have to deal with that because people feel more empowered to express those feelings today than they did before the election.
Mm-hmm. This one goes specifically for you. It's from Montserrat. It's from Montserrat Dominguez, our editor-in-chief from the Huffington Post in Spain. Any regrets about the Washington Post coverage of the U.S. election, specifically Trump's figure? Any regrets about your coverage in the Washington Post election?
I do not have any regrets. Now, that may sound arrogant, but I think that I'm very proud of our coverage. Our coverage was widely praised. we did a lot of investigating of all of the candidates with respect to Donald Trump. We did so much examination of his life that we published a biography, and it's called Trump Revealed. It's a great biography. I think you should all buy it. But it is I think, a very revealing book about him and who he is. And then we did a lot of investigating of his, which was praised, of his charitable foundation, the Trump Foundation. He claimed to have been a very philanthropic person, giving a lot of money away. It turns out that he gave away hardly any of his own money. A lot of the money in that foundation came from other people. It wasn't out of his own pocket. And a lot of his claims with regard to his charitable activities were, in fact, pretty much all of his claims with regard to his charitable activity were entirely false. And then in the end, we did obtain the infamous tape from the Access Hollywood show, which talked about him and how he grabbed women. And that almost undermined his entire campaign. His poll numbers were dropping precipitously for a couple of weeks after that. He was able to recover partially because of the FBI investigation of Hillary Clinton's private email server.
And esta es sobre el negocio. This one about the business. Alejandro, el Confidencial, ¿qué opina de la estrategia de negocio basada en la suscripción del New York Times? ¿Podrías comentarnos la estrategia de suscripción del New York Times? Y otra más sobre si el futuro de los medios será ir por las audiencias de nicho, hacia por las suscripciones. ¿Cómo está enfocando el Washington Post su negocio de las suscripciones también?
Well, I think that the New York Times has done an exceptionally good job. It's evident in the numbers that they have. They have a lot of subscribers. Now, some people are people who used to subscribe to a print newspaper, but they now subscribe digitally. But there's no question that the New York Times has been among the most successful, along with the Wall Street Journal, in getting digital subscribers. We would like to have their numbers. I can't reveal our numbers, but we're actually quite happy with where they are and how they're growing right now. Certainly during the course of the election, more and more people were subscribing to us, I think because of our election coverage. And more people are subscribing since the election because I think people now recognize finally, I should say, the essential role of the press in a democracy. And they want to make sure that, they would like to make sure that we have the resources to do our job, and they want to show their support. Subscriptions are very important to us as part of our business model. They are can be a more stable source of revenue than advertising, which goes up and down sharply. And obviously, if we were to have a recession, they would be dramatically affected. So we want to build up as many sources of revenue as we possibly can. Some of that is niche markets too. We just introduced this week a international newsletter called Today's Worldview, and we have a sponsorship from the beginning, which we're pleased with, and that is targeted obviously at an international audience, but not a mass audience, a niche audience of people who are the most engaged in world affairs, from politicians to government officials to educators to you name it, students, what have you, but people who are deeply engaged in world affairs.
Esta es sobre Trump. Otra vez sobre Trump, y es interesante porque no solo el Washington Post está enfocándose en reforzar la cobertura sobre Trump, sino también The Guardian, el New York Times, y dice, ¿cómo piensa usted conseguir que la audiencia del Washington Post no se sature, que no se vuelva insensible a las informaciones diarias sobre Trump?
Yeah. Well, one piece of evidence is that all of you keep asking me questions about Trump, and so obviously it's not a saturated market yet.
You're right.
And I think the same is true, if not more so, in the United States. We can see from our traffic numbers that there is an insatiable appetite for news about Trump. Notwithstanding that, we're not doing it because of the traffic. We're doing it because we need to, I think, as I said, an essential purpose of journalism is to do investigative work, is to hold powerful institutions and powerful individuals accountable. We have this new rapid response investigative team that we have. At the beginning, we'll be focused on the new administration, but over time, it's a resource available to all departments in our newsroom. So our local staff, our business staff, even our cultural staff, anybody who needs investigative resources. So this is not just about Trump, it's about doing investigations.
And this one is about the investigations, and this one is about investigative journalism. What do you think about the consortiums, the new investigative consortiums? You weren't in the Panama Papers, so Rosa is asking, what do you think about the Panama Papers investigation? What weren't you there?
Well, I think it's great. Anything that leads to more investigative journalism, I'm in favor of. That was one way. I think that certain news organizations around the world don't have the resources to do these investigations on their own. And something as big and sprawling and complicated as that requires a lot of different news organizations contributing. Ultimately, we did become a part of that consortium. We were not at the beginning, but we begged to be part of it, and they listened to our pleading. And it was a little late to be involved, but we were part of that, and we would expect to be part of consortiums in the future.
Elena Resano is asking, Trump now is in... This question is from Elena Resano, journalist. We have still time for a couple questions? Yeah. She's asking how, with Trump again in the focus, how are you going to organize your newsroom?
Well, you see, it's not saturated. So I think, well, one is we created this investigative team to focus, at least initially, on the new administration. All of the people who were working on covering the campaign, and we borrowed staff from throughout the newsroom to cover the campaign. Pretty much all of the people who worked on the campaign on a regular basis are staying on the national staff to cover the new administration. We have a record number of people, I think it's 7 now, who are covering the White House alone. And then we have staff covering the different federal agencies. And we have a team of about 8 people whose job will be to get out of the bubble of Washington, get into the central part of the country, what people sometimes call the real America, and understand how Trump's policies are being received, what kind of impact that they're having, and sort of what the overall sentiments are among people in other parts of the country, not in the major cities of the United States.
Rafa Stirn is asking about the credibility. Credibility, it has to be on the focus too, and he's asking how can the media retain the people's trust? What is lacking now that lead to this? And isn't the media responsible in some ways to some of these laws?
Yeah, I'm sure we are responsible in some ways. I'm sure that's true. I think that we have not done a good enough job of listening to readers. For example, during the election, prior to Trump becoming a candidate, it would have been nice if we understood the country well enough to know that a candidate like him could emerge, and I think that we didn't do that. And clearly, we were not listening well enough to the entirety of the United States. And so I'm sure that we have, and we don't necessarily reflect those views in our newspaper, on our website. We have to do a better job of that. That said, I don't think that we can abandon our central mission. I think that would be the worst possible thing for us to do, is to somehow think that we should change our central purpose. Our purpose is to find out the truth as best we can. It's hard sometimes to discover it, but that we have to work toward that, and then we have to publish it. And certainly at the Washington Post, we aim to be an independent news organization, not attached, not aligned with any party, any politician, any movement, or anything like that. And so we want to just publish the truth, and we would hope that, and we do hope, that there is a large enough audience for that in the United States who want independence, do not want us to align with a particular party or politician.
And this is the dollar million question again, but there is a lot of questions in that sense. Maria Ortiz is asking how to fight false messages, like daily.
How to fight false messages daily?
Post-truth, false messages, lies.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think that it's very hard. Look, we have our fact checkers. We have 2 people working full-time on it, in addition to some of the reporters who work part-time on it. I can tell you that the fact checkers have never been busier. And But the question is who's listening, who's paying attention to that, and there's a lot of evidence that people who have certain beliefs will simply ignore evidence, and if it contradicts their pre-existing viewpoint. How do we get past that? I don't know. I think that's something, I wish I had all the answers to the challenges facing our profession. I don't. That is, as you heard, the thing that worries me the most, and we as a profession are going to have to think hard about what we can do about that.
About social media, how many people manage Washington Post social media? Do you have?
I think our team is about 12 people right now. It's not just Facebook, Twitter, Google, Snapchat, those. It's obviously things like Reddit and the message apps, like WhatsApp and things like that, and how can we take advantage of those outlets for disseminating our work, and how can we use those outlets to listen to what people are talking about and turn those into stories. And it is as I said in the speech, it's a listening mechanism also. It's not just a way of disseminating our work to more people. It's a way for us to hear the world's conversation. It's an amazing thing. Everybody's talking there. They are honest about their beliefs, and you can see what they're talking about. And we should be writing about what concerns people most.
Do you have the percentage of how many people goes to the Washington Post through social media?
Oh, gee, we do. I just don't have it here. I'm afraid I don't have the number.
There is a lot of questions about populism. And it's like, this one is from Anna, and she's asking if populism is something that you see in the United States and also in Europe, a tendency that we should be aware.
I'm sorry, what was the last part?
That populism, we should be aware, because it's a tendency,
sure. Well, obviously
not only in the United States, but you know what happens in the United States first comes to Europe later, so.
Yeah, well, it may have actually started in Europe, but in this instance. But obviously, it's a huge issue. It's something that we're paying a lot of attention to, and I think everyone should pay a lot of attention to. Sort of, what are the origins of it? What are the reasons for it? What is the impact that it has? What does it really stand for? What would the policies be? I think there's a lot of evidence to indicate that the new administration in the United States believes that there is a worldwide populist movement, and that what happened in the United States, what happened in the UK, is going to happen throughout Europe and perhaps elsewhere in the world.
Do you have in mind, this question is from Millán Berzosa from Google News Lab, do you have in mind to make a Washington Post in Spanish like the New York Times en español?
Not at the moment. We don't. You know, I'm interested to know how successful the New York Times initiative is. You know, they've tried before. In China, of course, the government kind of shut them down. In Brazil, it just didn't work for whatever reason. I don't know the details of that. I think they're now spending it looks like they're spending a fair amount of money to create edition in Spanish. I don't know how much success they're having. I think our goal is to be more selective in how we approach this, to think harder about it. And this new newsletter is one step. It's a small step. It's our first product targeted at an international audience. It is not, I suspect, our last product targeted at an international audience. And we have to, but obviously the Spanish language market is a large one, not just in the United States, but obviously here in Spain and then in Latin America. And if there's an opportunity there for us, and it makes sense from an investment standpoint and from an earnings standpoint, then we will try to do it. But we haven't come to any decision just yet.
Maybe you don't need it because you have really good readers of the Washington Post here. Clara Jimenez from La Sexta, she's a fact-checker specialist. She's asking you can tell us more about a new section that you have. Is the name of the section? Can he do that? What is the focus?
It's not a section, it's a podcast. We're launching a podcast. Podcasting, I didn't even mention that in the speech. There's so many new areas. But podcasting, initially when podcasting came into existence, it was a total failure. A lot of us invested money into it. It didn't go anywhere. We all abandoned it. Now podcasting has come back. People are listening to podcasts on their smartphone as they're on the subway, or they're walking down the street, or while they're exercising at the gym, or whatever it might be. And so it is a promising way to for us to provide news and information. And so we're expanding that effort, as are many other news organizations. And Can He Really Do That is the name of a podcast that is about Donald Trump. And it is that he's going to be doing, and already he's going to be doing a lot of things, and he already has done a lot of things that people are going to ask the question, can he really do that? And the purpose of the podcast is to answer those questions.
And I have another question via Twitter. It's from Fernando Berlin, and he asks you, who is going to do the accountability of the media, of our responsibility?
Other media. We're being held accountable all the time. People write about us at the Washington Post all the time. They write about the New York Times. They write about the networks. They write about everybody. And we get criticized a lot, sometimes justifiably, sometimes not. As an institution, it obviously makes sense to hold us accountable as well. And we would rely on other media to do just that. And other media outlets seem very happy to engage in that activity.
And I don't know if we have time for a couple more questions or one more question. One more question about the balance. If you come back here to Madrid in 5 years, how will you know if you succeed?
If we succeed?
Yeah, you completely. I mean, what is your mandate, and what are your metrics, your challenges?
I think in 5 years we
4 years in this government.
4 years.
Yeah, after Trump's legacy.
Oh, well, look, I mean, I think that we say, I mean, we have two goals at the Washington Post. One is digital progress, and the other one is ambitious journalism. Journalism of ambition, do important stories, stories that make a difference. We want to do both, and we think we can do both, and we think we have done both. And that they're not two different things, that they're actually connected. And that's what we want to do. But I think that within 4 years or 5 years or whatever it might be, one would hope that we would have found a sustainable model for the kind of journalism that we like to do, and that is important to maintain. And that is, found good, reliable sources of revenue, that we would have become a truly digital news organization in every sense of the word, that there would be very few traces of a previous era. Even today, you constantly see print roots in our newsrooms. People tend to slide back to old ways of doing things, or they put undue emphasis on print over digital. Digital is the future. It's where our new audience is going to come from. A new generation is going to read us. If we don't get a new generation of readers, we won't have a future. That's obvious. So we have to be focused on that. But we have to find ways to earn enough money to sustain the journalism that we think is important to do. And how would I measure success? Have we done that? It's great that we had a profitable year for the first time in many years this past year, but 1 year of profit does not make a sustainable business model. We need to be able to show that we can do that year after year after year, and that it in fact is a model that works for us. Now, every news organization is going to have probably a different kind of model for themselves. I don't think our model is necessarily the same model as for news organizations here, or even for smaller news organizations in the United States. But we at the Washington Post will have to find a sustainable model. It probably means we need to be bigger still. I would hope that it means that we can be more international, and that we still are able to cover the community where we live, which I think is also important. So that's I think how we would be measured.
I'm sure you will.
Yo le quería hacer una pregunta relativa a una noticia que acaba de salir en su periódico, con lo cual entiendo que es verdad.
Breaking news.
Me gustaría conocer su opinión y si es posible que esto vaya a ser verdad y vaya a ser verdad a lo largo de toda la frontera.
El titular, sí.
El titular es...
Si puedes,
Trump
María.
signs executive order to begin planning for Mexican border wall, right? That's the one you're looking at. Well, look, that was a campaign promise of his. That was part of his platform. That's one of the first things that he talked about when he became a candidate. So it should be no surprise that he's decided to follow up on that. Now, he can't build a wall with just an executive order. There has to be money to build a wall, and money in the United States has to be dispersed and appropriated by Congress. So Congress is going to have to decide that it is willing to spend that amount of money. How much it will cost to build a wall is a big question. I think I forget his estimate, somewhere around 20 billion, 26 billion, something like that. What's a half dozen billion when you're building a wall? There are other people who say it will be much more expensive than that to do it effectively. It's a complicated process. The border is not, there are rivers, there are mountains, there are a lot of barriers there. People own the property. They don't necessarily want to turn it over for a wall. They'd like to use it for their own purpose. So there are a lot of there are environmental concerns, which presumably somebody will be paying attention to in the next 4 years. So, but clearly this is something that he feels a promise that he feels he needs to keep. It's one he made to the people who voted for him. It's incredibly important to a good portion of his voters. There's no question, and he seems to be signaling, I would say this executive order is a signal that he intends to follow through on that promise.
Creo que tenemos que ir despidiendo. Se han quedado muchas preguntas vuestras sin poder hacerlas. Muchas gracias, Marty Baron, por los mensajes que nos has traído hasta aquí. Espero que en estos próximos 5 años puedas volver a Madrid, nos cuentes cómo está yendo el Washington Post. Espero que bien, seguro que bien, por nuestro bien, por el del periodismo en España, por España también. Y me quedo con ese mensaje de coraje que nos has traído, que seguro que lo vamos a necesitar a uno y otro lado del Atlántico. Muchísimas gracias.
Bueno, gracias.